Good evening. How are you?
Hi, Nancy. How are you doing?
Oh, good. I'm glad somebody can hear me.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. I can hear you. You just never know sometimes.
I know. I'm with you. Hi, Brad.
Good evening.
Good evening, Carl.
Now I can say good evening. I was being limited there. No rain, no snow. It's pretty good evening.
Hi, Nancy. I don't have my cheat sheets for running the meeting with me today, so you're going to have to really keep me on my toes.
Okay. Noel will not be here this evening, nor will Kate. Kate Townley.
I just saw that, yeah, Kate had her second shot. And
Yeah.
And Michelle, Wade is out of town, so I'll be your staff liaison this
Okay.
evening. So if you want to just turn it over to me for your main item, I'll just briefly introduce it and then we'll get going.
that sounds like a good plan. Okay. I'm going to go grab some water and I'll be right back.
Good evening, Colin. I'm glad it worked out you could be here.
As am I. Excited to go through the capital improvements, but yeah, didn't think it was going to happen, but turned out I was able to switch some things around. So sorry for the change.
No, thank you.
When I thought you were out of town.
I'm at home.
Okay. Well, hopefully everything is as well as possible.
It is. Thank you.
Still not quite sure if we can really go all these many places yet anyways, but I'm looking forward to that day where we can go out of town.
Exactly.
Depends on who you listen to.
Yes, that is a good point. Honestly, I'm getting to the point where I think I'm finally ready to start going out here a little bit, and I'm hoping the summer will continue along those paths, and then we'll all be able to start enjoying the Gothic or any of the other fun places in Inglewood. Although I might start with my first concert outside. I'm just going to throw that out there.
think it's this Saturday. There's a concert that I'm supposed to be going to at the in the city center. What hall is that? It's,
At Hamden Hall.
yeah, okay. That's indoors, and I don't know. I'm sure they're taking measurements on that space and whatnot.
What's the concert?
It's. I think it's just two guys, violin and piano, and I'm not really sure. My wife was covering most of that.
You just go where
yeah, sounded pretty good, but I've seen some pretty nice concerts in there, actually.
Nice.
Acoustics isn't very good, but whatever.
But it could be live music again, which is kind of the fun part. Look up. I'm sure Judy will mention it later, but I think there's an actual in-person commission event later this week. Is it this week or is it?
I'm gonna double check. I believe it's this Thursday.
Okay, at a brewery.
Yes, yes. So that's an exciting thing. I will look it up though to verify. I automatically thought it was this Thursday, but now that you asked, I better double check.
I do think you're right, but yeah, I'm not 100% positive either.
I saw one of the Beatles movies, I think, A Hard Day's Night at the Gothic. That's how ancient I am. And everybody was screaming. And I was like, I can't hear this movie at all. This is stupid. Why are they all screaming? So that's, yeah, anyway. Nancy, are we waiting for anybody?
I believe everyone is here that's going to be here.
Okay, all right. Well, then I will call this May 4th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order and ask that Nancy call the roll.
Kate Townley is absent. Meg Donaldson,
Oh, I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button.
that's okay. Colin Haggerty,
Here.
Judy Brown.
Here.
Kate Fuller,
Here.
Diane Lepowski,
Here.
Noel Atkins is absent. Carl Adams,
Here.
and Chair Austin.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Excellent. All right, I see the next item on our agenda is the approval of the April 20th, 2021 minutes. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Nancy, do you want to call for the vote?
Could I have a motion, please?
I told you I don't have my minutes, my cheat sheet with me, so thank you very much. Yes.
You're
I'll
welcome.
move to approve them.
Thank you. Could I have a
I'll
second?
second.
I'll second.
Okay. All right. Ms. Donaldson,
Going to the top. I'm using a different computer tonight. Sorry. Yes.
thank you. Mr. Haggerty,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Fuller.
Abstain.
Okay, hold on one second. Ms. Lepowski,
Yes.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
and Chair Austin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. I think the next item on the agenda is public forum. Do we have any public with us tonight?
We do not.
Okay, so we can skip that. Okay, and were there any public comments, just out of curiosity? Or did we, I have that as part of, my piece of paper is wrong. My piece of paper says that comments, public comments could come in until January 19th, so that must be, when I picked this up, they said there were some changes. Oh, well, that's still not, okay, anyway. All right, we'll just move on to capital improvements project review. Brad is here with us tonight. And would you like to start speaking to us about that, Brad?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I just want to let you know, if you hadn't heard at the beginning of the meeting, Wade is traveling, so he's out of town. So I'm filling in for him this evening. And I just want to briefly introduce the capital improvements program budget discussion. I think most of you are aware that the city's charter requires the Planning and Zoning Commission to develop a prioritized list of recommendations for the capital projects for the coming year, and make those recommendations to the city manager, so the city manager can consider those in relation to what would be submitted to the city council later on in the summer and the fall for their formal consideration. These projects that you'll hear tonight are very similar to, in terms of the type of review that we went through last year. All of the projects have been assigned a tier 1, 2, and 3, and you'll also see the 5-year program in the materials. What we really want to concentrate on tonight is the review of those tier 1 programs that are slated for 2022. Now, that's not saying that you can't ask questions or go into questions or inquiries to the department heads that are here tonight about other items. But what we really want to try to arrive at the end of the evening is some type of shared consensus on the list of capital projects for 2022 from that tier 1 category that you would recommend for the city manager's consideration as he develops the budget for the city council. So with that brief introduction, I want to turn the meeting over to Jackie Lowe, the city's finance director, who will take it from here. And then you can see also that several city department heads who are responsible for various projects within the CIP are here as well, and they'll be taking part in the evening or in the meeting as well. So Jackie, please continue.
I think you're muted.
And I just would like to ask staff to please let all of us know what page that you're referring to, so because this is a really big packet.
And also Judy
Oh.
has her hand up. She has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Judy.
So just for clarification. So last year we were only being asked about the 2 very specific funds. And the way I read this, the ones that we are supposed to concentrate on were the public improvement fund, tier 1 stuff, and the, you guys use all these things, this CPF.
Capital projects fund.
Yeah. Are those the 2 funds that we are supposed to mainly be addressing because there's only 5 million available?
So I believe Jackie's going to cover that in her opening remarks, and we'll go from there. If she can be heard.
Okay.
Yes, the focus tonight are those 2 funds and balancing that request with the amount available.
Jackie, we
doesn't
can't
say
hear
that-
you.
Yeah, but it doesn't say you're muted, so I'm not sure why we can't hear you. It says we should be able to.
Correct.
Maybe a secondary mic setting as opposed to from the program.
This is Jeremy. I'm trying to help her right now.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. It's so good have the Deputy Director of Information Technology on the team. All right. So these directors are going to discuss their respective departments' tier 1 list for the following 5 years. Tonight, the Director of Utilities and South Platte Renew are not present tonight, but he's going to review his project with you at the next meeting. Jeremy, can I just have control of my? Okay, so
Yes, you can.
let me share my screen with you. Yeah, as Brad mentioned, we just met with council last night to review the same list. And their request is they are waiting for the recommendation from P&Z and the staff. So we're going to present the same list with you. And by charter, the P&Z is going to recommend the project list to the city manager on June the 9th. So I want to give you an overview of the total projects submitted. Based on the 2022 capital projects submitted, 48% of the total projects across all funds support the infrastructure goal of the strategic plan, and 19% supports the safety goal of the strategic plan. And of the total tier 1 project across all funds, 63 of these funds support the infrastructure goal of the strategic plan, and 10% for safety goal, and 10% for the neighborhoods. And tonight, the directors will review the projects under these funds, except the utilities, because director utilities need to review the list with the water sewer board. So he's not present tonight, but he's going to review his list with you next time. First is a conservation fund. We listed estimated beginning balance from the 2021 budget. And the designated funds represent the funds to complete the current projects in progress. So in this scenario, we estimate to have an ending balance at the end of the year with $500,000, but the 2022 tier 1 capital request total $125,000. For the Conservation Trust Fund, we received $300,000 from the Colorado State Lottery proceeds. And Director of Parks and Parks and Recs is going to review this list with you.
Are these slides reflected of in any of a certain page number in our packet?
I believe we're on page 21.
I believe it is 21. So like Jackie mentioned, these funds come specifically for Parks and Recreation out of the Colorado State Lottery. And the tier 1 projects that we'll be focusing on, granted the other funds, we may spend down some depending on the projects we have for 2022, but we have fitness equipment replacement for both the Maui Recreation Center and the Inglewood Recreation Center. Things like the ellipticals is what we're looking to replace next year. Pirates Cove maintenance, this purchases various things. Like we have new play equipment coming in. Last year we got a new spray ground put in. And so that is annual funding that we have to maintain Pirates Cove. And then the Bellevue train at $16,000. Last year we had replaced quite a few of the different railroad ties as well as do maintenance on the train. And that's what the funding went for. So I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the Conservation Trust Fund.
Okay, just so that I'm clear, I think there's 2 different page numbers. So I think the slide that we're currently looking at is page 22 of 250. Is that correct?
That sounds right, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any question for the Conservation Trust Fund? If not, we'll move forward to open space fund. Open space funds receive approximately 1 million from the Arapahoe County open space sales tax. The estimated ending balance for this fund is 1 million. The 2022 Tier 1 capital request total 647,000.
All right, so our Tier 1 projects out of the Open Space Fund are ongoing tree replacement. This is not related to the Emerald Ash Borer that's also in the Public Improvements Funds. The Parks Flower Bed Program, we have 25 flower beds throughout our park system. Half are maintained by volunteers, but this helps purchase those flowers. And then the other half are also maintained by a contractor. So that's what covers the cost for the flower beds. The irrigation replacement, our system is very old in our parks, and so annually we have to do a lot of repairs. So main lines, sprinklers, controllers get replaced out of this fund. We also fund 1 employee and a temporary employee, so 1.5 FTEs out of the parks maintenance employee compensation. And this is unique, not all, usually you don't fund a position out of capital. However, Arapahoe County Open Space, this funding actually allows us to do so. Many municipalities that receive funding from Arapahoe County utilize it to fund a parks crew member. And then the parks planning, design, and project management. This last year, we've done some planning for Jason Park, and that's the funding that we've used as we look to renovate future parks. We'll utilize this funding for just that. And then the one towards the bottom that just says funds, that's actually grant matching funds. This year, for an example, we're using Jason Park and obtaining hopefully a grant in the next month or two to renovate the playground, picnic shelter, and restroom facility. And so these funds may not be designated just as of yet because we wait for the grants to open up to see what we can apply for, but the funding is there for grant matching. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Colin?
Thanks, Christina. So the that 100,000 that you use for the design and project management, is that done with one of those employees, and or is that an out like sub consultants or contractors that would come in and under those?
We would go out to bid for a firm to do the design for us. Yes.
Okay, so you have the 1 employee, and then when things are, you need some more design work type things, that would cover that.
Yeah. So the employee is separate. That's a parks technician.
Okay.
So they're out in the field mowing and working on irrigation and different things. So the park design is more for renovations of the parks itself.
Thank you.
And I have one quick question. The line item contingency, is that just sort of a place marker for something that goes wrong that we might need to add funds to one of the specific items above?
Correct. You know, if a slide on a playground fails or we need new swings or whatever, and it wasn't something we necessarily budgeted for, that's the contingency we're able to use for kind of miscellaneous potential issues that may pop up throughout the year. And again, these roll over year after year. So if we don't use that 50,000, it rolls to next year.
How often is it dipped into, out of curiosity?
The contingency,
Yes.
we just dipped into it this year. We're renovating Romans Park, and there was a modification on the playground we needed to make for safety purposes. It was a high platform, and we wanted to put some rails on it. So we dipped into it and took $14,000 out to cover that. That new rail to be put in. So it's few and far between, but on occasion, you know, every year is different, and the parks this last year have been used very heavily. And so we're looking at having to replace more pieces or at least do maintenance on them.
And this is, I don't want to get into side conversations or anything, but just out of curiosity, since it is right down the street from me, why weren't the floodlights for the tennis courts put back in?
At Romans Park?
Yes.
That's a good question. I'll follow up with you on that one. I know there were some issues with the electrical out there, but I'll check on that and I'll get back with you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Since it's so close, I just noticed that people do use it at night quite a bit.
Diane has a question.
Hi, thank you. I'm just curious. I know it's a tier 3, but I was just curious if you could give a quick description of what the open space land bank is.
That's funding that we have to purchase land if we ever have any come available. It's probably not enough ever for that, but that's one that just rolls year after year after year. And we have, to my knowledge, have not spent much out of that. That's why it's a tier 3, but it's available to use. The unique piece about open space and the Conservation Trust Fund, we rank these as 1, 2, and 3, but technically they're all 1 because we have access to the funds throughout the year.
Okay. Yeah, my question was you sort of answered it, which is $86,000. What will we get for that?
Not much, but it's there. And again,
Yeah.
goals. And if we can reallocate these funds too, that's what's nice about this. While we rank them in tiers and have them specified, there might be something where we can take contingency and put it and partner it with Open Space Land Bank or other ones as well to build that fund if we ever needed it.
Thank you.
Carl, did you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question on the irrigation system replacement. Does that include or is that going to be done this year? The median down Broadway, that was supposed to be, irrigation system was supposed to be replaced there so that they could be replanted. Is that true?
That's true, and that doesn't come out of this funding. That's different funding mechanisms that we have for the Broadway medians and the Hampton medians. And so we are looking at getting all of that up and running, hopefully this year or next.
Okay.
Okay, if you don't have any question, we'll move to golf course fund. We received approximately 2.2 million from the golf course fees. The estimated ending balance is 1.5 million. The 2022 Tier 1 capital request total 1.5 million.
So for our Tier 1 projects, annually we replace 12 golf carts. And that's under a contract we have. It's just under $50,000. We do that for a 5-year time frame. We should be done in 2026, and then we'll look at a new contract. The irrigation for the back 9, it's 30 years old, and this money we've been saving up for many years to get to this point. We're in design right now for the back 9 irrigation system, and that 1.2 million will go towards the replacement of that. In hopes to make it much more efficient. And we have a lot of issues, a lot of irrigation work goes on for our crews out there to keep it from flooding or not watering at all. And so that's an exciting project. It's a long time coming. And then the last one on here is the golf course operating equipment. And this next year, we're looking at purchasing 2 mowers for 2022. And so it'll replace 2 mowers that we've had for probably longer than their lifespan. So I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding the golf course fund. And again, this is from player fees. This isn't city funds that's utilized for this fund. Jackie, you're muted.
The estimated received funding from concrete utility fund estimated around 1 million. The ending balance is estimated at 1.4 million. Then the 2022 Tier 1 capital request total 925,000.
Good evening, everybody. Good to see all of you again since last year. I'll go through this briefly. For the concrete utility fund, we do charge properties who are opted into the program a certain amount per quarter, now monthly, on their utility bill to pay into the concrete utility fund. And what we do is we collect that money, and then any repairs that are needed, whether we have heaved sidewalks, cracked or broken sidewalks, we replace those, kind of going around the city in 5 different zones. So we'll be in zone 3 this year, which is kind of the northwest portion of town. And you can see there that we've allocated, 2021 is zone 3, 2022 would be zone 4. And we've allocated $750,000 to keep up with those repairs of all the concrete and then curb and gutter as well. Then, so you see there the separate line item for curb and gutter, which also includes some cross pan work, basically anything concrete within the right of way.
Judy?
Quick question. You said for those people who have opted in, so homeowners can opt into this?
You're typically signed up already, and then you can opt out. So most people are already, I would say about 97% are opted in.
So if a property changes hands, do they automatically get opted back in?
They do.
Okay.
And if you've had work done, you cannot just opt out. So you can't just pay in until you get your repairs done. You have to continue within the program.
Okay, thanks. I just didn't know about that. Thank you.
Colin?
I guess just to follow up on that, is that then cover just your stretch of sidewalk like in front of your house? So if that were to fail, the city would come in and replace that. But if you weren't in part of the program, you would be on responsible for that improvement yourself.
Exactly. So per municipal code, it's the adjacent property owner's responsibility to maintain that sidewalk. And so maintain and correct or repair. And so by opting into the program, we take care of it for homeowners.
Okay, we will move, if no more questions for the concrete utility fund, let's move to the two internal service funds. One is the service center fund. We received 2 million from the interdepartmental charges. The estimated ending balance for 2021 is 1 million. The 2022 tier 1 capital request total 250,000.
Yeah, so the projects that we've identified, the service center is located kind of over in the industrial area west of Santa Fe and north of Dartmouth, if you're familiar with the area, right along the river. And we do have a variety of buildings on the site. And so we do various upgrades each year. You can see we've planned out our next 5-year plan beginning in 2022. So there is varying amounts, and those tie back specifically to a list of projects that we're anticipating. So for the service center, we do have some outbuildings that we'll be doing repairs to in 2022, as well as doing some internal remodeling work to upgrade the restrooms there.
The other internal service fund is the capital equipment replacement fund we call SERF. The SERF estimating balance is 3.6 million. The 2022 tier 1 capital request totals 3.1 million. In 2022, Public Works will charge department to fund part of the 3.2 million and will draw down the fund balance for the difference.
Yeah, so just like Jackie says, again, we've been doing some catch up in the capital replacement fund. So we have roughly 340 some vehicles and pieces of equipment that are included within this capital equipment replacement fund. And so it's similar to a lease, each department pays in annually towards the replacement of that vehicle or their group of vehicles. And then at the end of the lifespan, we replace them. And so we should have accumulated enough money to be able to replace that vehicle. Unfortunately, we haven't in the past have been doing that as rigorously as we should have, or at least not allocating as much as we should have. And so we're getting more on track now to not only catch up with the number of vehicles that we're going to be replacing, but also then, as Jackie mentioned, is using some of that accumulated fund balance to draw down. And you can see that very large dollar amount in 2022 of buying over $3 million worth of equipment. We do have some very, some heavy equipment too, so like front end loaders and graders, which are very expensive as well. And our goal here really is to try and flatten this out. You can see 2025 goes down significantly. We want to make that more of a 1.5 million on average over the next few years. So we'll be balancing those purchases out to try and get that at a more reasonable level each year.
Colin?
Does the city own their own street sweeping vehicles, or is that something that's leased out? Because it seems like that program is starting up, and I would assume that will continue to grow as you know, the money's available.
We do. We have 2 street sweepers right now that we use in that program. They're both the type that are kind of vacuumed. So they work well with leaves and debris like sand and debris that's accumulated over the winter.
Okay, any questions about the SURF fund? If not, we'll move to the Public Improvement Fund.
I'm sorry,
And
I was muted. Can we go back a little bit, sort of to expand on what Colin just said? Or is the city going to continue to have the no parking signs being portable ones and going out and plunking them down every, on the different streets for the different sweeping? Or is the city looking at investing in more permanent signs like Denver does that says, sweeping on the first Tuesday of every month?
Yeah, we've talked about that. The investment for not only the signs, but the labor to install them would be significant. So this curb to curb sweeping that we've just begun, we do that twice annually, once in the spring and then once again in the fall. And it really is more cost effective for us to install the temporary signs on kind of a rotating basis than it is to put up regular street signs or permanent street signs at this time.
Well, that makes sense. If you're only sweeping basically twice a year, that makes perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a Public Improvement Fund. Public Improvement Fund receives approximately $4 million from the vehicle use tax building taxes. The estimated ending balance for 2021 is approximately $966,000, but the 2022 Tier 1 capital request total $16,450,000. We'll have the directors to review their list with you.
All right, I'll start off if that's okay. So our road and bridge, that very first line there that you see is the monies that we accumulate to put towards our own street staff for asphalt, for pothole patches, utility patches, anything that we do internally through the streets for road and bridge maintenance. We also do our own crack sealing prior to putting down the slurry seal application. And then that second dark line there, the Tier 1 concrete utility city share. So what I didn't mention when we were talking about the concrete utility is that you pay for your frontage, but the city picks up any of the corners where we have ped ramps or any of the short side streets if you happen to be on a corner lot. So you're not penalized. If you're on a corner lot, you pay just your frontage. And so that $325,000 is allocated for those side streets and again for the ramps on the corners. We are continuing, hopefully, to implement some of the walk and wheel plan projects that have been identified. I believe that study was completed in 2015. And so there are a number of prioritized projects in there that focus on additional bike lanes or additional off-road trails that could be constructed to promote more walking and biking within the community. Then we've got signal equipment upgrade. We do have 64 signals that we maintain throughout the community. And so every year there's things like the cameras or the controllers, the computers, if you will, that control those traffic signals. So we have regular upgrades to that equipment or replace parts that have gone bad or just broken. Then we are adding a project to do a traffic sign inventory. This is part of our asset management efforts to know what we actually have out in the field and how we can go about that, replacing that in a more proactive fashion. So we've identified some money there to collect that data. And then again, traffic signal replacement. So this is different than the signal equipment upgrade and replacement where we're just replacing parts and pieces. And here we're actually looking at upgrading or replacing one entire signal. And so you can see there's a significant cost associated with that. And even again, at 64 signals, even if we replace only one a year, that's a 64-year life cycle to replace all of those. And finally, that West Dartmouth traffic calming, that's our city match for a grant that we were just recently able to procure for about another $1 million to match in with that. And that's just, again, putting on some on-street bike lanes widening some sidewalks, and then replacing the signals at Dartmouth and Zuni and Dartmouth and Tejon. And then I'll just continue there. So we did allocate money in the last year's budget for the Broadway and 285 interchange. And so what this shows, that 8.4 million, is just that money being carried forward to make sure that we have that once we go into construction. So we're right in the midst of design, and we anticipate going out to advertise for bids in February of next year. So most of 2022 will be consumed with construction for that interchange. Then we do set aside some additional money to upgrade those corner pedestrian ramps beyond the city utility share that we just, concrete utility share that we just talked about. And then we are continuing our alley maintenance program. If you're familiar with that, we've been working, last year we worked a lot in the southwest portion of town. We're right now up in the northeast kind of corner of town. And we're going to be moving down into the south and east portion of town later this year. And what we're doing is we're creating that V where we're grading the alleys to create a V so that we have positive drainage to either end, and then also applying a dust suppressant. So it seems to be really working well for those alleys that have received that treatment. And it really helps reduce the maintenance for street staff, that they can go in, have to only go in and touch it up, as opposed to fully coming in and trying to regrade those alleys each time. And then finally, our pavement maintenance. Again, our city is divided into 5 zones that we've established of roughly the same areas. And we're going around methodically to each zone to address poor pavements and either do a preventative maintenance treatment or corrective maintenance on select streets. So we don't do every single street in that zone, but we do identify the streets which need that work, trying to keep the good streets in good condition, and then address poor ones with a mill and overlay.
Can I ask a quick question on the alley paving, which is the tier 3? I understand. How many alleys does the 525K get us?
We've estimated that a typical alley, which is 660 feet long, would cost about $175,000 to pave. So that would take care of about 3.
Okay. Is that going by region also, or is that kind of sporadically, like fixing the worst ones first?
Well, and I think that's why we put it at a tier 3. We need to have that discussion with the council and with the community as to how do we prioritize, and does the city pay 100%, or do the adjacent property owners pay for a part of that, all of it? Those are some of those policy questions that we have to answer before we really kick off a program like this. We've got over 300 alleys that are not paved. So even at 3 a year would take us almost 100 years to pave all of them. So we really need then to identify, how do we make a priority? You know, if it's only 3 per year, how do we prioritize those even when people might want them quicker than what we might be able to deliver? So a lot of those things we need to talk about.
I'm sure everybody does.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
These are all tier 2 and tier 3 projects. There's one more tier 1 on this slide.
Yeah, again, that was a dollar match for a grant that we were able to receive. So the Floyd and Elati intersection is just kind of on the north side of Hobby Lobby, or kind of in the northeast corner of Hobby Lobby, if you're familiar with that intersection. And it's kind of a skewed intersection with some limited movements right now. And so we've had some safety issues there, some broadside crashes. And so we're doing some improved medians and kind of bulbing out the corners to more direct traffic as to how to travel safely through that intersection. And so that is, again, a grant match for what the city's share would be towards that total project.
Is that the intersection that has a traffic light?
It does not right now, no.
Okay, slide 5. There are a couple of tier 1 projects.
Yeah, so the Union Avenue is, it's basically west of Santa Fe, and it's how you travel out to Federal Boulevard where Waste Management is located, if you're familiar down with that area. And so it gets this tremendous amount of heavy truck traffic. And so we really have separated that out as a separate project to not only repave it, but really it should say reconstruct. So we need to really go down, deal with the subgrade, and make sure that we're having a good base to re-put in enough asphalt on or concrete to make sure that that road will hold up over time. So it's going to take more than just a maintenance or corrective action. It's really probably going to take full reconstruction. Similarly, Dartmouth Avenue, just west of Santa Fe, we're seeing a lot of rutting of the asphalt as heavy trucks pull up to the signal at Santa Fe. They're putting on their brakes and they're shoving all that asphalt, and we're seeing big kind of ripples back. And so again, that shows that there's something going on underneath, that we probably have to look at the subgrade pavement and rebuild that segment, that section. And finally, we're looking at wanting to do, so the Broadway and 285 project that we just talked about is really for the bare bones, the pavement, the curb and gutter, that sort of thing, the storm sewer. And this would be enhancements to the bridge just as a placemaking. It's an entrance to our downtown, and really adding some enhancements to that bridge, possibly the underpass underneath, the walls of the retaining walls underneath as you travel on 285, doing things like that. And so we've allocated some money to add to that project to look at some of those aesthetic elements.
Colin?
I believe we had in the special session at the end of last year, when we added a few projects to the 2021 budget, added 500K for this enhancement. Is this an additional 500K, or did that not make it through the final cut?
Yeah, we added 100,000 last year.
Okay.
Very good memory. And we did that that was more for how this project would interact with the duck pond area, which is kind of in the northwest.
Sure.
That drainage way over in the northwest corner. This is more focused on the bridge and the walls underneath.
Okay. And then you've got 500,000 for Dartmouth, but 1.2 for Union. I mean, Dartmouth at 500 doesn't seem like it would go very far, but there's no more requests. Is that maybe a placeholder? Is there maybe more requests there? Or do we think that 500 is going to be enough to do that full?
We think it is, because we're doing that Dartmouth bridge widening project. So we will widen out a good ways. Basically, I think the cross street that's kind of midway between South Platte and Santa Fe is La Pan, maybe. So we are going a fair ways east already. So it's a fairly short chunk between Santa Fe and that street that goes north-south that we would need to reconstruct.
Okay, so that'll tie into those other improvements already.
Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Do you have any questions for the Public Improvement Fund? Then we'll move to the Capital Project Fund. Yeah, Capital Project Funds receive funding through transfer from the General Fund and the Public Improvement Fund. The estimated ending balance for this year is around $330,000. For the 2022 Tier 1 capital request total $1.9 million. So let's take a look.
All right, so the first Tier 1 project is art in public places. It's 1% for the arts. And this funding is utilized annually for the purchase of new art, the maintenance of existing art, and also the Cultural Arts Commission does allocate some funds to put towards various cultural arts events that may be going on, or sponsoring various elements at our city events, like sidewalk chalk artist, or things like that. So that's an annual fund that goes to the arts. And the second one is the Emerald Ash Borer Mitigation Program. We've allocated $50,000 each year. We know Emerald Ash Borer is present on the Front Range. And so in preparation for that, we have from the park side of things began to treat some of our ash trees, remove ones that aren't doing so well, not related to Emerald Ash Borer, but in anticipation of it coming. And we do replace those trees with different species. So hopefully our tree canopy will survive the emerald ash borer. And we are looking for 2022, a potentially new program to offer a grant for residents as well that may want to treat their trees or replace their ash trees with something else. And that's preliminary stages currently. Any questions on those two items? Colin?
Thank you. I apologize for having so many questions, but there's lots of good stuff here. So what is that art in public places? What is the 1% actually? If our whole budget's this year, 77 million, is it just 1% of which budget?
Of the capital funds. So
Just of the capital funds. Okay.
correct, not the whole city budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to be talking about the IT stuff. For the tier one, the network development, that's basically, we have a replacement program for our enterprise infrastructure equipment, such as servers, networks, data center equipment, all the stuff that runs all of our software and storage needs. The PC replacement program is for all of the end user equipment. We have that on a life cycle where we replace a certain amount of PCs based off of age. Every year we run our PCs at a 4-year interval, so that's why that's an ongoing stuff. And the fiber network, that's basically to get fiber into the ground for the city. So currently we don't have fiber in the ground. If we do, it's aged and doesn't work very well, and it's not meant for the future. This project is basically set in 2 phases. We got phase 1, a full design for the whole city that will help us budget and prioritize where we're going to be construct. And then phase 2 would actually be construction of the fiber in the ground. And this project is actually we're partnering with multiple departments that have need for fiber and high speed. So, and do you guys have any questions?
Oh, Judy?
And
Judy,
the
we
600,000 for this year is the phase 1, and then the corresponding 500,000 over the next year is phase 2, or is it so help me understand, because if you commit to one, don't you have to commit to all of it?
Right. So in the past year, starting in 2000, I want to say it's 19, we started budgeting for it. Last night just got approved from council for the phase 1 of the design, which was already budgeted for. And then we have so we're starting phase 1 now, should be complete within 6 months. And then to get everything that we need, it's for phase 2 is going to have to be a multi-year project. I don't believe that we will be able to complete the construction on. We'll have to prioritize and figure out what those costs are, and that's what this design is going to tell us of where we need to go into the future. And also help us try to find other funding sources if we can to get this in. So
I guess my question is there a point at which we have to accept that we have to have all of the future? So phase 1, if phase 1's just the planning, is that the point at which you say it's go or no go for the entire phase 2, or can you do that in? I know I'm not making myself clear, but I'm trying to understand what's the long-term commitment that we have to make in order to make this. I mean, phasing is fine, but I'm not grasping really what the long-term commitment is. And I don't want to spend money now that's going to waste because we can't do it later. Does that make sense?
right. So phase 2 on the construction at a high level is basically, I call it construction, but phase 2 will be broken out in multiple years and multiple phases. So with the team, we will go through and say, okay, here's this priority that we need to get to these assets, and this is, and break it up in sections of of the city and build that out in those sections. So we're not getting one lump sum in 1 year. So we have to break this whole implementation out in multiple years. It could be 10 years, it could be 15 years before we fully complete the whole design. But the design will give us where we want for the priority, because fiber, when we put in fiber in the ground, it usually lasts about 30 to 50 years. So it's a huge investment. And plus and we don't know what's going to be, what the future entails for us. I mean, right now we know, autonomous vehicles is going to be huge in the near future. We know, broadband and, the internet's going to, or I shouldn't say the internet, but bandwidth is going to be needed for more things, and more things are being connected using fiber communications. So we're trying, in this design, we're actually trying to get all of our assets currently, and then what's for the future. And what can we do to provide, can we provide Wi-Fi service in parks, and, what can we do for our citizens on there? Did that answer your question? Or make it a little bit more clear?
Yeah, no, I got it. Thanks.
Colin?
I think kind of following up with Judy, is the 600K for the study itself? Is that the first phase, or is there any implementation in that?
No, the 600K would be more, it would be for construction.
Okay, so you've already done the study, or you said you had that approved, so that's part of the 2021 budget,
That's
I
part of
guess.
2021. So that will
Okay.
be beginning in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, and then I guess kind of building on that, there is the 5G and how all of that, and that'll, I'm assuming, be part of the study. I mean, I know the city of Centennial has their own fiber backbone network, and they're improving that, so it's not like this would be the only one. But I guess, is the end goal with the understanding, like, will we tie into those systems, or how will those systems will ours be completely on our own? Is the 5G, is the wireless side going to be so much more powerful that the fiber won't be as necessary? Or is that going to be supplementing some of those items?
Well, that's a lot because they're all kind of different.
Okay.
So like 5G is wireless, and when you're dealing with wireless, you want to get that communications off into cable as fast as possible.
Okay.
Because the airwaves do get crowded. What this opens is up, like the city of Centennial does public-private partnerships. They lease dark fiber. This brings us opportunities for that, to have that backbone in there. I mean, we could say public-private partnerships for businesses. They can lease dark fiber if we wanted to. We could also go into, let's say, fiber to the home if we wanted to provide service, to that. So the possibilities are there. And then if there's agreements, let's say we needed to get to Arapahoe County for public safety or something of that nature, where we could tie into and have some agreements with the city of Centennial or Arapahoe County and work with those other agencies. It just really depends on the application of what we're trying to do. Or like Denver, we can, if we wanted to do, we've had talks in the past of Denver providing us, space in their data center for a disaster recovery site. So we would need fiber for that, where we'd have to have IGAs or MOUs to use their fiber and our fiber, and to be able to get back to their data centers. So it really depends on the application that's needed.
But I think we want to get it off the airwaves and from 5G into a fiber more efficiently. So it really does supplement each other at that point.
That is correct. So whenever you're looking at any type of wireless technology, it's got to ship that data somewhere. And the reason why, like small cells that they have, and that's, you're talking about 5G, a lot of those small cells are connected with fiber going back to their macro sites, because their macro sites could not handle that because of the frequency and the phones, it just couldn't handle it. So that type of bandwidth.
I hope you understood all of that, Colin. I didn't.
Enough to get myself in trouble, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Next slide, we'll have more capital projects under Public Works.
Yeah, so just again, doing some needed fan upgrades in the pool area at the rec center. That's been on the list for a couple of years, and we want to take care of that and reduce some of the condensation and just move the air better in there. And then we have, again, established a 5-year program for all of the facilities and various projects that we want to do. So those dollar amounts on that fourth line, starting with the 844,000 and then stretching over the next 5 years, reflects that more detailed list that we've prepared, and it goes into all the various facilities except the service center, which is its own account. And then finally, the ADA compliance projects. So one of the tasks that we're undertaking in 2021 is to evaluate or do an audit, if you will, of all of the city facilities to look at any issues that are not in compliance with the ADA guidelines. And so we anticipate that there will be some items coming out of that study that we'll need to address. And so we put this as a placeholder beginning in 2022 to actually implement some projects to correct those situations.
Any questions for the Capital Projects Fund? This is a summary of project costs by fund. You can see the estimated beginning balance for 2022 and the total required project costs. I want to bring your attention to the Public Improvement Fund and Capital Project Fund. The total request amount for Public Improvement Fund and Capital Project Fund add up to 18 million. But we have beginning balance $1 million, and we receive approximately 4 million from the vehicle use tax, building use tax. So you add a 1 million plus 4 million, we'll have a total 5 million available for the total capital projects request for 18 million. That's why the council met last night. We're thinking about how to address the funding gap. We also need advice from the P&Z Commission to help us to prioritize those requests. I'm going to turn it to Brett to have the commissioner lead the discussion.
Thanks, Jackie. Well, I think you just explained it well. At this point, we would turn it over to the discussion with the commissioners. And obviously all the staff and Jackie are still here to start to talk about the relative trade-offs relative to your prioritization discussion. You heard a lot about all of the funds that are listed, but in past years, you may recall that you've paid most attention to the final two, the Project Public Improvement and the Capital Projects Fund. So at this point, maybe what we could suggest to you is, although if you have comments on any of the other funds, we'd certainly take those this evening, and Jackie and the staff will take note of them. But perhaps it'd be a good idea to maybe start with the two on the bottom, public improvement and capital projects, and just start to work through your further questions and your discussion with each other around any type of consensus that you may be able to build around the priorities for those two funds, given the funding opportunities and the constraints that Jackie just identified.
Colin?
I guess to make sure I'm understanding this, we're requesting $18 million, but our funding's only $5 million. Okay.
Yeah, request total 18 million.
Okay. But there are some funds that are actually tied to grants and other requirements, like the Broadway interchange of 8 million, which would, I think, cover all of it. So how we have to fund that? How do we do anything else? And how do we get an extra $3 million?
Yeah, we talk about the possibility to do a general obligation bond We do have a general obligation bond outstanding for Parks and Recs, which will retire in 2023. I did reach out to our financial counsel to see what would be the best time to do so. We're going to bring recommendation to council.
We still have Stiefel,
Yes.
yes, on our team here to provide recommendations for that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so they're already assessing that and would be able to provide that information at a later date. Is that what we're saying?
Correct.
Judy?
Was several, and I didn't mark them all, where it was mentioned that we had matching funds. So assuming that we pretend the 8.4 million isn't required, and if we wanted to actually have a conversation about the remaining, I would like to know which ones have matching funds and suggest that those should be a top priority simply because we don't want those funds to go away. But the only one I was quick enough to mark was the Floyd and Eladi intersection improvements. And I didn't know if there were others in either of the groupings. And I know we're talking about the 30 right now, the public improvement fund, but if somebody could tell me which ones have matching funds, that I would like to recommend that those should go to the top of the list if we pretend we don't need to come up with 8.4 million.
Yes, you're correct. So the Floyd and the Lottie, and I think who's ever running the screen, if you could go back 2 slides. One more. Let's see here. Oh,
I think it's a document.
yes, there it
1
is.
million and 8.4 for yeah.
Correct. That's the other one.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jackie.
Meg?
Thanks. I wanted to, excuse me, just clarify. So just those two are the only two in the whole list that have match requirements. And so that is a little less than $500,000. So we would still have quite a bit of money, but I guess I want to go back to the highway project. Are we moving forward tonight, assuming that we're taking that 8.5 out and just trying to narrow down to 5 million? Is that the direction we need to be going? Or do we need to wait and see what happens with the larger amount first?
I think this came up last night as well. And I think one of the things we'll need to do working with finance. So we are getting a grant for 7.6 million of federal funds and then $800,000 from CDOT. So, which is the 8.4 ironically, but this is the construction amount. So the whole project was about 9.6. So part of this is, and what we have to look at more is we have to upfront the cost and then get reimbursed. So do we have the money in the bank to make sure we cover that? But we might not, get the money until the latter part of 2022 or even into 2023 once we actually build the improvements. So some of this is timing issues as well. But we are getting out of roughly a $10 million project, we are getting excuse me, let me make sure I said it right, 8.4 million out of roughly 10 million are grant monies for that project.
So help me understand, what are some of the ways we could get that essentially bridge financing? I know you mentioned bonds before. Uh-oh.
Oh, no, I heard your question. Mill levy, that's another possibility. These are 2 options we're considering.
Okay, thanks.
Colin?
I guess so. What what happens if we don't fund that 8.4? Does that have to be within construction within a certain year? Can we budget 2 million to get started for at the end of 2022 to get them going into 2023 as part of that, and then be able to continue with some of the other items? Does it have to be the all 8.4 right now? And I believe would a mill levy, wouldn't that have to go to a vote of some sort if we did that, as opposed to bonding? I think we would have the capacity to do, but maybe I'm mistaken on that.
Maria, will you be able to answer this question? So calling your questions about if we do not spend down the 8.4 million, how long can we carry forward the balance?
Yeah, I mean, because if we're counting, if these are grants, we have to pay it up front. I think Director DeAndre was saying, can we take 2 million of it now while we're trying to figure that out, or or some smaller portion than the 8.4 million?
So we are committed by taking the grant that we have to spend the funds by the end of 2024. So we could spread it out over 3 years. Obviously, we prefer to move forward with the construction. The longer you wait, the more that it costs, obviously, and spreading it over also costs money. But yeah, I think we do have that ability to move it out at least 2 years to 2024. We'd have to be done. Does that help?
I think so. Thank you.
Judy?
Okay, so this is just for clarification. So make sure that I wrote everything down properly. Federal 7.6, CDOT 800,000. You said that was 8.4 million that we get back on a $9.6 million project. So that leaves, just for rough numbers, about 1.2 million that we have to fund that we will not get reimbursed for, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so does it help us get the other fund, the remaining funding that we need up front? Does it help us if we allocate that 2 million from this 5 million? And I'm not even pretending I understand all the nuances of the financial stuff, but do we gain anything in terms of leverage if we're going to go to somebody, to people for a bond, or to the public, and say, look, we have 1.2 million that we've allocated from our existing budget. We're going to have to borrow, beg and steal 8.4 million, but we get that back. I mean, is there an advantage to us in marketing either of the bonds or the mill levy or whatever we've got to do, if we are making sure we're covering our part today up front? Does that question make sense?
I'll take a shot at trying to answer that. Yeah, I think, again, I think that's going to take some evaluation of whether that's a good position or not. As far as bonding, I don't know if it helps or hurts. I think they look at the overall balance, if you will, of how we're managing the money, how the funds flow in, where if those are secure or consistent, if you will, maybe that's a better word, funding sources, of how we get the money to go towards these specific, the public improvement fund. So I think all of that gets wrapped up in how we go about issuing either additional debt or bonds or whatever. Anything you want to add to that, Director Lowe?
No, I think you covered it all.
So I guess for us for tonight, I guess we're trying to get some direction on where we should be spending our time tonight. So is there any, which is the better, which gives you all the information you need from our discussion? Is it best if we ignore the whole 8.4 million and just prioritize everything else, pretend like that doesn't exist, and say, okay, this is where we think that 5 million should be spent. But knowing that this project takes precedence over everything else we discuss, or do we take 1.2 million out of this discussion and now talk about what we have to allocate with the remaining 3.8? So that's, I think, I would just like some direction on what we're doing tonight.
Yeah.
There.
So that's great. So I think probably the best, assuming that we're going to go back and look at this more closely in terms of timing, I would suggest that we look at taking assuming that the 8.4 does not need to be dealt with, and instead look at prioritizing the remaining list of items to try and get use up or prioritize within that $5 million limit. Because I guess then we could always, if we need to, we can always come back and talk about that again, but let's assume the best. And we're trying to be conservative to try and see what your priorities are in terms of these remaining projects.
Colin?
Yeah, I was looking at the next few years in a row also, and we're looking like we're going to be doing this just about for the next 2023, 2024, and 2025, having these same conversations. So, I mean, we obviously we want to make it as reasonable as possible. I know for the storm drainage fund, we ended up bonding for that. And I think if that's the realistic approach that we need to do, then I think we just need to get that assessment done and figure out how to move forward with that. Or I know that they also borrowed from the general fund on that part. Is maybe a borrowing from the general fund an option in this case, or is that already tapped out? We had excess last year, that we reallocated. Maybe in hindsight, we should have reallocated it towards this. Yeah, okay. So I guess moving away from 8.4, let's start figuring out how we get rid of the other 4 million, is it? Because we had 17 going -8 to trying to get down to 5, right? Or 12. Are we going from 12 to 5? I thought it was 17 total was the number that we had seen before.
Yeah, it's close to 18, right? And we minus the 8.4, still have 9.5.
Still got 4.5 left to go.
And Jackie, is that for both the public improvement and the capital projects fund?
Correct.
So there are two. Yeah.
Yeah, two combined. Yeah, this page. Oh, I don't want to go too far. So do you want to review all the requests under public improvement fund and capital project fund one more time? Or
Judy?
Did we start?
Just real quick, for those of you who are trying to figure out, I don't know, these are the pages I'm working from. I know that Michelle wanted page numbers. So if you go to 17 of 502 and 18 of 502, you have sort of all the stuff on those. One's the bottom of 17 and the top of 18. Everything's right there in that list. If you need to have your PDF open or print it out like I did, those are what we're using for. And I would sort of prefer, rather than removing 4.2 million, I would prefer to approach this from we know we have two that have matching funds, and I think those are a given, and they should, and that's, what is that, 485, so 500,000-ish. And then start working through what is most important to whoever is having this discussion. The other thing is, I noticed, and please tell me, be completely honest, you guys, I noticed that the order of what was on the slides is different than the order than my page. Am I correct to assume that you guys have preferences and that you put them in the order of your preference? Please be honest.
are you asking us, the staff?
I think she's asking staff if you have favorites.
Yes, we don't want to, I mean, you're the experts. We're just trying to be helpful and have a discussion. So it would help me if I knew what was more important to you in your work every day. I don't do your jobs every day. So I would like the people who presented on these to help us know what you believe is important, since you do this every day.
Yeah, I'll certainly chime in. So no, we did not put these spreadsheets or this presentation together based on priorities. I think our task was those tiers, tier 1, 2, and 3, but they're not presented in any particular order at all. I would say probably maybe as a place starter is things like, and I appreciate the matching grants. I think that's an important distinction where we can leverage other people's money, other grant money to get more money for the city. But I would look at things like these programs. So I call programs versus projects. So the things like the concrete utility city share, that's a program. It's ongoing every year. And it might seem very, not exciting, but it's something we do every year to maintain the sidewalks, to maintain things in good condition. And so it's kind of that backbone, if you will, or that underlying fundamental elements that we do each year just to make sure that things are safe and in good condition. So things like that, the concrete utilities share, the signal equipment upgrade, those kinds of things, road and bridge in this case, are really, key kind of factors that are just done every single year. I think the amount that's increased significantly since we came to you last year was the amount for the pavement management program. So we were at 1.8, I believe, for 2021, and we have bumped that up significantly. And that's as a result, we've done some analysis of the condition of the pavements, actually done a rating from 0 to 100. And we're seeing just a lot more deterioration than we had anticipated. So we're putting more into that corrective maintenance and less into the preventative maintenance. And so the corrective costs a lot more. But that is an area that's increased significantly. So that may be an area where you want to maybe cut back as well. I hope that's helpful. Things like that.
Very helpful.
Olin?
I was going to say that if I had it, I'd say we should just do all the maintenance activities, except for that pavement maintenance is $3 million. So if you were saying that was 1.8 last year, maybe we meet in the middle at 2.4 or something, just to provide an increase, or maybe 2.5 to provide an increase, but then be able to fund some of these other activities. But yeah, when you have the alley maintenance, I think, which is important, the concrete utility share, the road and bridge fund, I feel like those items, I guess, is there a way to figure out what the maintenance items are totaling up to? So we can see if there's even any money left after that for any of the actual projects. And I like the fiber network too. I think it's super important for the city to attract businesses and things like that. There's a lot of numbers here.
Are at for the road and bridge, concrete utility, signal equipment, alley maintenance, we are at 1.125.
So everything except for the pavement maintenance.
And then if we add in I didn't do the 335. I need a better calculator. Let me add up the matching funds and these other ones. And I'll give you a number. And then and I'll throw in fiber network, because I agree. Other people need to be talking. And then I'll give you a number. Other people discuss what they think.
Diane?
I was just going to ask, actually, is this something where we need to raise our hands and all that, or can we just start chiming in? Do we need to have this formal hand raising business?
That's up to the
This is
chair.
a question for you, Nancy, or Michelle, I guess.
No, it's for the chair.
We can try just chiming in and see how that goes. If it gets too muddled, we can go back to hand raising.
Okay, thank you. I think Judy made a great point about matching funds. I think that's a really great idea. But I think considering the funding gap we're looking at, we have to look collectively at what our biggest goals and priorities are at a sort of bigger scale than each of these programs or projects. You know, like I remember last year, Kate, you mentioning safety. Look, safety, priority number one. What's priority number two? Is priority number two business development? Because then I would say, yeah, fiber network, IT, stuff like that might come next. So I guess I'm sort of encouraging us to think a little broadly about what our strategic goals as a city are, and you know, because there's going to be certain things that, you know, like the ADA compliance one seems like a safety issue, and but the Emerald Ash Borer one is the health of the city tree canopy. I guess I'm just saying we should discuss what our kind of overarching priority goals are, and then maybe that will help us figure out what the monetary allocation should be.
I just want to jump in real quick, just so you have the number. It's 2.16 million if we add up the two matching funds, the maintenance ones that and the maintenance ones that were mentioned, road and bridge, concrete utility, signal equipment, alley maintenance, and then the 600,000 for the fiber network. At those, we are at 2.16 million. So, and I don't disagree on terms of safety and that kind of stuff, but I also want to ensure that we're listening to the people who do this every day on the maintenance stuff. So.
Judy, which ones did you say are the ones that we have matching funds for?
What I wrote down was the Floyd and Laddie intersection improvements and the West Dartmouth traffic calming were the two that they said had matching funds.
Could someone speak to the Broadway and 285 bridge enhancement? I was wondering why those funds are separate from the 8.4 million. Because it seems like it would be a no-brainer to do that along with that project, but I just didn't really, even from the page 172 out of 502, I wasn't really sure what the, it says incorporate like enhancements into the final design plans, and I was wondering if someone could speak to that.
Sure. Yeah, the total project budget that we got the federal grant for was pretty bare bones. So we didn't anticipate a lot of extra elements. And so now as we're getting into it and really seeing that as a placemaking opportunity for the city, that kind of south end of downtown, bridging kind of the north and south parts of Broadway, that we want to do some additional, what we call enhancements. So that might be public art, enhancing the bridge elements, adding decorative lighting, or doing something potentially some sort of art or treatments to the retaining walls as you travel on 285 underneath the bridge. So it's kind of that whole area, and just basically taking it from a functional project to something that's looks aesthetically pleasing and is again kind of a says here's Englewood.
And Madam Chairman, if I could jump in on that, I do want to point out that the project that Maria is describing is the one that I described to you. You may remember when I presented the supplemental budget project. So I just wanted to let you know we're not double dipping. We ended up taking it out of that supplemental because that was strictly for 2021, and we are incorporating this into 2022. So you're seeing the same project twice, but we're not double dipping because we took it out of the 2021 budget supplemental.
Okay, thank you.
I like how that ties into the Englewood Move mission value.
Mm-hmm.
This is Meg. I was curious on that same topic, if that funding would be ready to be spent in 2022 with the construction timeline, or if could that be pushed out a year potentially?
Our construction will probably start in March or April of 2022, but it will continue into 2023. I believe we want to, if we're going to issue the construction contract, we do have to have the money allocated though. So even though we might have some spending in 2023, we would need to have that approved as we go and issue the contract in 2022.
And is forgive me if you already said this, is that already designed, or would that be like an extra element to design that has not yet been designed?
Yes, we're right in the middle of the design right now, but we have not started on the aesthetic elements. So we would be doing some outreach to the community, the DDA, to get input on that, and probably come up with some concepts that we would, and we did just go through a placemaking and wayfinding effort. Our communications department and city manager's office did that. And so we'll be using that kind of as the basis to start to design some very specific elements that people could react to.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I mean, I don't know about everybody else on the commission, but I'm sort of hearing a consensus building around the idea that some of the maintenance programs should continue to be funded, which I would agree with and support. And that, you know, maybe if we're thinking strategically about the Englewood Forward document, which of the programs or projects, probably projects listed on here, would help push that mission forward. And I completely agree that the enhancements for Broadway and 285 would fit within that mission and context, and especially considering all of the different conversations we've had about city center, and I think that would dovetail really nicely, personally.
I agree with that. I guess one final question, just as far as being able to move money around, is that something that could be handled in the same way as the larger amount for that project in a bond or mill levy? So could we effectively remove 9 million and kind of encompass that together, or is that something that would have to be handled separately?
I think it would have to be handled separately, because we can't get grant funds for that at all. And we can't use grant funding for those types of improvements. Was that your question, or?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Okay.
Would there be any way, oh, sorry.
Go for it.
Would there be any way to get, like, I don't know, a donor or something for something like that, like some sort of Englewood art philanthropist? Everyone I can see is cackling and you can't hear.
What do you know?
Well, you know, I don't know. Is Elon Musk moving to Englewood?
Or Diane, like a corporate sponsorship, buy a brick for the bridge enhancement.
Yeah.
Something like that. I'll jot down your idea.
Or is there some way that the DDA could be? I don't know. I'm just trying to think outside of the box I mean, I think most people would agree it's better to have a handsome or lovely interchange, especially when it's in that kind of urbanized condition, rather than, you know, one of the really rough and tough sort of standard ones.
Mm-hmm.
I guess
Ada would agree. Our other Englewood citizen that just hid.
You said we have to allocate the funding, but can we allocate it in 2023? Just so we're not trying to put it into the 2022 also would be an option for that 500K, because I mean, I agree. I think we want to, you know, this project's going to be here for the next 100 years, 75 years, whatever that number is. I want to make it the best that it possibly can be while we're in there doing it. So I guess if there's any other option for that, and then I'm going through numbers here that I'd like to ask after that question.
Yeah, I'll defer to Director Lowe as to whether we can do that way. Put that in 2023.
I would say yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be great. Okay,
Can I
so
just ask Jeremy a real quick question? Because we sort
Yeah,
of left
please.
him out of this. Can you give me a little more? And I apologize because I probably missed it when you were talking, but on your facilities and operations, is that also ongoing maintenance that we need to really focus on? If you could just answer that. I think it's Jeremy, right?
Are you talking about the network and
The
the PCs,
844.5.
facilities and operations? Chairman?
Maria's. Yeah,
That's Maria.
Public Works. Mhm.
It's under CPF, so I don't know whose that is. I thought Jeremy was all that.
Oh, Public Works here.
Yeah,
I
so
think the
that,
network one is what
Oh,
you're
I
asking
see. I'm
about.
sorry. I'm sorry. I just blocked them by funds. So I
Oh, it's
thought you
okay.
were. Okay, so on the facilities and operations, the 844, I guess that's in.
yeah, so we've created a 5-year plan for each of the city facilities. So this would be for the rec center, the civic center, the new police building, and identified projects spread over those next 5 years. And so we do have more detail that totals up to like the 844,500. And so that's what we're recommending. Obviously, if it was less than that, we would have to go back and it would just push that out into further years. There are a couple, it's typically minor things like, you know, some roof repair or maintenance, a window replacement. We also have the 3 fire stations that are included in there that we maintain. So it's a variety of little projects at all of those different facilities.
So if we added the 844 into the list that Judy previously talked about, we're at basically 3 million. Is that correct? Out of the 5 that we're trying to allocate.
Yeah, that's what it sounded like.
So that's what I wanted to clarify. So the PIF and the CPF together are 5?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So can I step through and make sure that I've got these numbers right? Because I put them over into a spreadsheet so that I can start changing things around. Okay, so we've got parks and reparking. I'm sorry. Parks and rec parking lot maintenance is 60,000. Road and bridge.
Oh, no, we didn't include the 60. Or I wasn't including the 60, but okay.
That's part of the PIF though, right?
Right. Are you talking about what we've already talked about, including or not?
I have that we are talked about in the road and bridge for 300, the concrete utilities here for 325, walk wheel implementation for 200.
That's not walking wheel, that wasn't in there.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I pulled that to the side. Yep.
Okay, signal equipment upgrade 150.
Yep.
Alley maintenance 300. Floyd and Nalati intersection improvements of 350. Dartmouth traffic calming of 135. And fiber network of 600. Is that correct, Judy?
That's what I had.
Okay.
What about the concrete program accessible ramps at 240?
No, that's just what we had talked about from a maintenance standpoint. And then the rest of these, I think that's like an ongoing upgrade kind of thing. Anyways, that's where we were. I'm not saying that we don't include them. That's just where we were when I was adding up numbers, what she just listed.
Okay, so that was road and bridge, concrete utility,
Signal,
Signal equipment,
alley
alley
maintenance,
maintenance,
Floyd and Laddie,
Lloyd and Laddie,
Dartmouth calming,
West Dartmouth, okay,
and fiber network.
and fiber network.
And
Okay,
then that came to 2.1 million, is that right? You've got a spreadsheet there, Colin, you can figure that out.
Yeah, he can add them up
two
faster
point
than you.
one six, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so then from there, our, on the sheet I'm looking at on page when it was, let's see, what's the summary, the tier 1 priority project requests. There's parks and rec parking lot maintenance under the PIF for 60,000. Is that a part of this request?
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so that's a maintenance activity also.
Okay.
What about the traffic signal and the traffic signal replacements
750.
and 40,000? I'm sorry, traffic sign and then traffic signal replacement
The
for
inventory was the one that was the program where we're gonna go and check and see the condition of all of them. Is that correct?
Yeah, it basically feeds into our asset management system so that we know how many we have and can replace them in a proactive manner. They fade over time or get hit and damaged.
Is this like, when you say asset management program, is that something that will be like digital? Like you will know as soon as it happens? Okay, that's cool.
Digital in the sense that it we have a software program that manages it.
It's not smart. You're
No.
saying it's not smart.
It's not smart at
It's a-
all.
it's
It's
a
only
not-
as smart
it's
as
a
what
not
the people
smart.
put into it.
Okay.
And I think you're thinking of last year when they went through and were going to evaluate which signals were needed updating. This is just a sign, the street signs
Mhm.
inventory, not a traffic signal stuff. I think you're
Okay.
thinking of last year when we talked about, we allocated the money for the traffic signals
right.
themselves.
Mhm.
So these are like stop signs and street signs and things like.
Yeah, okay. I know what you mean. Yep.
Yeah.
Totally stupid manual
Yeah.
polls.
Yeah.
So if we add those three in there on top of the 2.16, we're basically at 3 million about, right, Colin?
which 3 to make sure I'm understanding? Are you talking traffic signal?
60,000.
Parks and Rec, traffic signal for 750.
Okay.
Traffic signs for 40.
Then we are at 3, very, very good, 3,010,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, is this including the Broadway and 285 enhancement?
No.
Or we're taking that off? We took that off.
We're gonna put that on
Put that on.
2023.
And
Kick in
we
the
should
bucket.
we should include Emerald Ash Borer for
Yes.
50,000, since that is to be as proactive as possible. And then another one on the page I was looking at, Jeremy, are the network development IT and PC replacement IT, those are kind of recurring maintenance costs for your department, right? So we should include those.
That's correct. Because
Okay.
if they just age out, they'll break, and then we have to take the risk of things going down.
And
I'm
that'll
sorry.
be more expensive.
3.3.
I was writing things, Kate, what were the things that you wanted to add?
Network development IT is 150,000. PC replacement IT is 90,000. Emerald Ash Borer for 50,000. And then I had one other one that kind of stuck out to me. The ADA compliance projects, that one for 100,000 if we can fit it.
And then the public art, are we just gonna say that that's 500, I'm sorry, 55,000? Because it's shown as 22,000, but it's 1%. So do we just put that down at 5,000? Because that's what we'll end up at.
I don't,
Yes.
go ahead.
yeah, I believe that's how it's gonna work, depending on what we actually have, not what's overall requested for these funds. So it'd be the 1% of the total that you're funding for next year.
Okay. So we'll
Yeah,
have to,
I don't want us to ignore that 844 for facilities and operations.
4.24, 450.
Woohoo.
All right, so the other ADA, which was the, what was it? The concrete programs accessible ramps was 240.
Okay.
Well, we also,
Could we also get
we're
a
also
little,
forgetting, oh, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, could we get a little bit more info on the fan upgrades? I recall you saying it was for the rec center pool. Could we get a little more info about that? I have not taken my kids since COVID, but I definitely remember it being stiflingly hot in there.
Yeah, Christina may be able to.
And is
speak
it
to
like
that
is
too.
it like a health issue or is it just comfort?
Yeah, Director Underhill may be able to speak to this too. We may have, with the additional allocation in 2021, let's just say that we'll take care of this through in 2021, because I think it is an issue. And again, Director Underhill, maybe you can speak to that a little bit more. I don't believe it's a health issue though.
No, it's not health related. We're having condensation build up on the second floor, which is causing other issues, not health related, just water issues. So this fan would help if we got that upgrade done.
So I think
Well,
we're
wait a
going
second.
to try and do it in
Okay.
2021, just to
Whenever you
address
got
that.
water, whenever you got water, you got potential for mold. So is this a potentially a mold issue if we don't address it?
I don't believe so. There's plenty of ventilation in there. This fan is just, it's old, outdated. It needs to be updated. It sounds like we'll do it this year. So if I'm hearing Maria right, we can probably take this one off the table for 2022.
So that's the 40,000 for that fan upgrade?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
Jenny, Jenny's our budget administrator. Jenny, do you have a comment or a question?
I do. I'm sorry, I had a hard time finding my hand and then unmuting myself, so I apologize. When you all were talking about the 1% for art in public places, that pertains to the project costs of the capital in the capital improvement fund. So it's just Fund 31 we're looking at when we're looking at that 1% allocation.
Jenny, do you mean 30 capital project fund or
Yeah,
public improvement fund?
the capital projects fund 31.
1% of that.
Yes, of those project costs.
And that's CPF, correct?
That's correct.
Correct.
That is a paltry amount of public art.
So Colin,
But I know we are facing a deficit.
you're running the spreadsheet. I think I've lost track a little bit. So where are we now?
Give me a second, because I had that, when I started calculating that, it was showing as $50,000, and I was very confused for a moment because I was adding up the 5 million instead of the 1.2.
And did we say we were going to ADA compliance projects too? That's a question. I think, yeah.
Second here, that's, there we go. And then that includes 1926 plus 27. Plus this plus, because the one thing that we keep forgetting is the pavement maintenance fund. And we're
I
over.
was just gonna say, yeah.
The 3 million?
3
Yeah.
million? I was just pretending that wasn't there.
Okay, so I mean, minus the pavement maintenance fund, we're doing well at 3.7. 3.69. Is that right?
Are we trying to get to 5 even?
Well,
think
at
so,
least
yeah.
just for a I guess at some point we might need to prioritize them too. I don't know. Do you guys, this is a question for the staff. Do you want us to prioritize them beyond what we're doing, which is just grouping them, saying we think these should be at the top and the others are at the bottom in no particular order? Or are you expecting us to then order these in priority from 1 to whatever?
Good question.
I can take a stab at that. I think that it would be fine for you to do groupings of ones that you are recommending for funding, as long as they fit within the, the total budget. I don't think you have to rank them.
Okay, good.
And I don't think you've done that in years past either.
So Sean, is this just our first pass at this and we'll get another pass at it?
Brad or Nancy, they are going to be seeing this one more time, correct? Or is this their one shot?
Well, last year there was, I can't remember if we came back last year or not, but we would, according to what Jackie said earlier, we would be hearing from at least the utility and South Platte Renew funds. So you could combine, if you're taking a look at that, you could combine a last look at these funds as well, if you wanted to do that.
I think last year what we did was we planned on 2 visits, but you guys knocked it out in 1. So
Right.
if you can knock it out tonight with your recommendations, because we will be getting recommendations from water and sewer, certainly you're welcome to look at those. But the charter actually requires water and sewer board to look at the water and sewer projects. You're not prohibited from doing that, but if you wanted to do your work tonight, that might, and finish it, that might be sufficient. But otherwise we can bring it back at your next meeting.
Sean, does that include the stormwater fund too for water and sewer?
It does not.
Do we need to look at that then also tonight?
The answer is no from Jackie. What
Sean,
say you, Maria?
Sean, I believe stormwater will, the sewer, the water and sewer board will look at the stormwater
Perfect.
projects along with water and sewer.
Okay, I just would want clarification from Maria DeAndre, Director DeAndre. Do they look at water and sewer projects? I mean, excuse me, stormwater projects, that board?
They haven't typically, and so I think it's kind of just floating out there by itself. So I think the intent was, as Jenny just said, to bring it to water and sewer board for at least a glance. But yeah, since they are only focused on water and sewer, we weren't quite sure where that should land. So we can certainly bring it back to P&Z when we come back with the water and sewer funds and review it then here with this group.
I think that would be best insofar as the water and sewer board only have authority over the enterprise funds for water and sewer. Those are both separate from the stormwater enterprise fund. So I think it'd be most appropriate for P&Z to look at the stormwater projects, but let's have water and sewer give a first glance, and then we'll bring everything back to P&Z if that works for you, Madam Chairman.
I think that's fine. And I guess I have a broader question now, because we're right at, Colin says 3.7 million. So do we need to basically stop so that we can have some money towards that 8.4 million for the Broadway 285 interchange?
We were just going to ignore the 8.4 million in this discussion. No, we were. That's what we started with. That was the first question I asked. But I think we should at least discuss the 3 million that I was pretending didn't exist. I mean,
I had an idea for that too.
Pavement.
Yeah, I can't remember who was speaking from staff, but were you saying that it was 1.8 million this past year? Because maybe we could just get away with doing the same 1.8 this year, because I think you were saying, sorry, I can't remember who was talking, that we were over whatever our budget was, but we hit 1.8. And so maybe we could try to stick to 3 million in future years, but next year go light.
Yeah, that is a very large jump to go from 1.8 to 3 million. So I appreciate that's a big increase to absorb. So we could certainly look at less than that for next year.
Well, if that's the case, then we've spent the 5 million.
And then some.
Yeah, I forgot to bring the 600 over. I had that off to the side. So we're at 375, yeah, 3.75 million without anything from the pavement maintenance. So we can do about 1.25 unless we cut out something from someplace else.
Right.
Would it,
And what was budgeted last year? Sorry.
1.8.
all right, this is Nancy. Would it be helpful if Colin shared his screen showing what's already on the list?
Yes.
And, okay.
Nothing else, Nancy, I think it would be very helpful for you for our minutes and tracking things. So yes, that'd be great.
All right, let me see if I can not mess this up.
Thanks, Colin.
And thank you, Colin, for doing the spreadsheet. That's fantastic.
That's what I do. Okay, let me know if you can all see this.
Yep.
Okay. So this is, here, trying to figure out how to, can you still see it if I shrink it a little bit like that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this again is based on this spreadsheet here, which had all of these numbers in it. So when I pull over 60,000, 300,000, 325, 154 signal, 300K for alley maintenance, the Floyd and Eladi 350 that we have to do, traffic signs for 40,000, traffic signal replacements for 750K, West Dartmouth for 135, gives us a total of 242,410,000 for the PIF, the network, PC, fiber, arts. See, that's what happened. I forgot to pull that back out down there. So we do have a couple more bucks. Emerald Ash, facility and ops, ADA compliance, and then this art is calculated off of the 1%, so that we're accurate there. That leaves us just under 1.3 million to put up here in the pavement maintenance. 29000 gets us to $4,994,527.
Our job is
Colin,
not now.
Colin, this is Jenny. Is the fiber 60,000 or 600,000?
Darn
Could
it.
you just double check?
It's 600.
600.
Okay, thank you.
That's.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
We both-
So.
Can I,
Please.
can I chime in? We could probably move some of that, cut that fiber in half and move that to another year. If that will help you guys out.
Yes, if that's reasonable.
Yes, that could be reasonable.
Because that's, I think.
And then next year we'll have a better idea from the design of what we need to do going forward. Because we did have some funding left in this year to begin building. So, and then that 300 will get us to some places, some buildings that we want to get to, like the police department, rec center, and some of those high places that are important. So if you want to cut that out and move that 300 to another year, we could do that.
Cut it out completely, or would you still need some?
No, cut
600
half.
Okay, so cut it to 300.
Jeremy, where are we not going to get it by cutting it in half?
Well, basically, we originally budgeted this 5-year plan to just connect up all the buildings. But since then, because of some regulations that came in 2019, we redid our plan and incorporated everybody else. So that's why we did the actual plan itself, the full design. So we have a better idea to budget better to there. And so I couldn't tell you exactly what we're not going to get, but currently right now, from the other years and the rollovers, we have about 600 right now. And so we'd be able to, in 2022, we'll have about $1 million to put into the ground for the projects in the ground and deplete those funds.
That sounds pretty good.
So maybe Director DeAndre, if we had pavement maintenance, what would 1.8 be the minimum that we would need from that? In which case we're about 700K over, if we're being, Jeremy, thank you for the extra 300K. Or can we go lower than that for the pavement maintenance? Is there other places that we need to, like, can the traffic signal replacement be lowered by a couple $100,000, or there's other places that might be better than trying to remove it from pavement maintenance?
Yeah, that's probably the one that I would target, is the traffic signal replacement, is probably cutting that down to, well, that we get it to 0 then probably. And so, I think what we're going to look at is not only replacing our signals, but also just removing some of them. And so that takes some costs off the table, where we would replace possibly with roundabouts. I know that's not popular with everybody, but we are evaluating that. And so I think we could forego the traffic signal replacement for another year.
And I think last year we cut it back quite a bit.
We did, yep.
I remember a conversation about how much does it cost to replace each one, and it was, I think, if my memory is somewhat close, like a couple $100,000 for a signal replacement or something like that. Is that correct?
It's more in that 700,000 range, yeah. So then by the time you design it, you are up at that 750. So that does take just, or account for just one.
Okay, all right.
A quick question relative to what you said. If you're removing, are you reusing those signals somewhere else? Or are we just like,
yeah, typically not. The pole design is very specific, usually to the location, even the bolt pattern at the bottom where it connects in. And so, and they're typically so old that they're really not of value to use somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, you could recycle the metal, but that's, the electronics, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know I'm sitting at the corner of one of the ones everybody's real excited about.
About a roundabout?
Yes, I live at Dartmouth and Downing.
Wait. That's going to be a roundabout? I missed that.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
No, I'm the one that hates those things, but I own it. It's okay. I just think I think little kids going to Charles Hay are going to be totally confused, and the bicycles are going to be thrown in the traffic lanes. But I've talked about this before, so let's focus on what we're doing tonight instead. So,
isn't there that yellow house right on the corner that's like in the road? Almost on the corner there, but okay. I'm sorry, I digress. I think we're at the number that we need to be.
Yeah, we're right at 5 million, basically.
I had something that I was hoping to revisit, and now might not be the best time since we reached our $5 million, but
spreadsheet, it's good.
Yeah, thank you for doing that. So I was looking at the ADA components, and there are 2 of them. One of them was the concrete program accessible ramps for 240,000. And to me, that looks like it's ongoing maintenance and also potentially tied to concrete utility work and, all the other road improvements. And the 100,000 one, I think, is what we have in there. And my understanding from the overview is that that's currently being studied, and there might not be a plan in place yet. And that's for internal building work. Is that correct?
That's all correct. Yeah. So that really is a placeholder right now. So we don't have a list of projects at this time that that 100,000 would cover. The 240 is also just kind of based on what we've averaged in the past. We're trying to achieve at least 40 ramps per year to be replaced. So we could certainly make that a lesser dollar amount than the 240. But yeah, we could maybe split the 100,000 and put 50 towards the ramps and 50 towards the ADA improvements as a suggestion.
Yeah, I like that suggestion. I guess I would like to see some go towards the ramp improvements as well. So if that's a feasible figure to work with, I like that idea.
So you're saying, you said split that, put 50 back up at in the concrete ramp program?
Yes.
And we're still right where we need to be.
I mean, I guess the other big number on there is the facilities and ops. I don't see that being able to be redistributed at all. I mean, if not, I think we're probably pretty good to where we would want to be. I mean, obviously there's a couple things that would like to add on there, but money's the budget, you know.
Well, hopefully we'll have a repeat of what we did just a couple of months ago. We'll have extra money to go ahead and take some of these other things down, but city council is going to change our list anyway. So, but it's not, if we're good with this list, is everybody relatively good with this list?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Colin, very much.
Yeah, I can just send this out if that works, or do we want to make the motion to approve this list and call it off?
Let's instead, can we make a motion to approve this draft?
Good point.
Pending further information at our next meeting? And
Make
if
a
you
motion
could,
to approve this draft.
and if you, Colin, could send it to Nancy and she can forward it on out to all of us, that'd be fantastic. So we have it and we could talk, we'll have all of this information before us at the next time we talk about all this. That would be great. Okay, thank you for the motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Perfect. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Nancy, do you want to call for the vote?
I do. Ms. Donaldson,
Yes.
Mr. Haggerty,
Yes.
Ms. Brown,
Yes.
Ms. Fuller,
Yes.
Ms. Lepowski,
Yeah.
Mr. Adams,
Yes.
and Chair Austin.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Okay. Good work, everyone. That was fantastic. Okay. The next item on the agenda is staff's choice.
For some reason, I can't find my controls to stop sharing or anything like that. So you're just going to have to keep seeing my screen. There we go. Thank you.
There we go. Madam Chair, there's nothing else from me tonight under staff's choice.
Okay. There's a whole bunch of other people from staff. Any of you have something else to say?
Not I.
Okay.
Me?
All right. Attorney's choice, Dugan?
I have no report this evening.
Okay. Okay, Commissioner's choice. I'll try to go around what I see on my screen and not miss any, not call on someone twice as I've done before. Carl.
I don't really have anything, but I was kind of curious what we're going to cover next meeting, though. If we have that, is that kind of set yet?
Nancy or other staff, are we going to continue with this process or we're going to go back to Title 16?
What is your preference? Do you want to revisit this again?
Personally, I would, while it's fresh in my mind.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Be
hear
to
you.
review it. No.
What do the other commissioners feel? Should we continue with this process or should we switch over to that other giant packet?
When will the water and sewer, if the water and sewer people are coming back to us next month, we probably should just get it done.
Okay.
I don't know, I like to stay on one topic if we can, but I can manage if we switch around. Are they gonna be back? Were they gonna be done and have all the information?
So what's currently on the schedule it doesn't have to stay this way, is John Voberl and Dan Poremba would be at the next meeting to discuss the city center rezoning ordinance, where you look at that in preparation of a public hearing on June 8th.
Okay, so we've got a public hearing coming up. But let me get to my calendar.
When does this go to council? I mean, when do we have to have this all done? And
Yeah, if I could make a suggestion, I think the finance director had a schedule earlier in the evening in her slideshow that showed a return. I believe it was on June 8th. And we would accommodate this discussion on that meeting if we could, and then we'll adjust what we need to in terms of the city center rezoning. We have some opportunity to maybe do that subsequent to the follow-up discussion of the CIP budget.
Okay. All right. Okay. Anything further, Carl?
No, that's all. Thank you.
Okay. Diane?
Nothing to add other than thanks for the city team's hard work putting this voluminous project together and helping us suss through it, and also to Colin for giving us the visual so we could better discuss it.
Okay. Colin? He's stuck. I'll move to Judy in the meantime.
There we go. Yay. Thank you for unmuting me, Nancy. I don't know, my computer decided it didn't want to work. I have nothing else. Thank you.
Okay, Judy?
Just as Colin said, I wanted to mention that the next leadership exchange is this coming Thursday, May 6th from 5 to 7 p.m. and it's at the Barn House Tap. So anybody who wants to start meeting in person and maybe find out more what that's about, that's when that is. So that's what I've got.
Great. Meg?
I don't have anything further tonight. Thanks.
Kate?
Nothing further. Thank you.
I have nothing further.
Chair Austin, City Manager Lewis has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I know you've already called on us for a staff response, but as I was sitting here thinking, last year, I really gushed over the amazing work that you did in going through this list. I could tell you had all studied it, and now it's just become second, nature, expected that you'll do a great job on this, but it should be stated by staff that we really appreciate the thoughtful approach that you all take in looking at these projects. These are really some of the most important projects to life, health, and safety of our community that we can undertake. And so I really appreciate the time that you all spend working on this, and you always do a great job. And also I want to say that you have a really good team. I don't know if you sense this, but if you watch other boards and commissions, you are a lucky group of people to have the members that you do. You are all very patient with one another, respectful always, but agree to disagree sometimes. But I just really want to tell you, you have a great group, and you're a pleasure to work with. Thank you.
Well, and I would second that and underline it. We do have a great group, and I thought we worked very well together today and have in the past. So we'll just try and keep that going. I have nothing further, so I will call this meeting as adjourned. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, bye.